and hopefully identify 2 or 3 startups that can actually be successful at these ventures.
Thank you. I guess Africa in this case can be like even in this region can learn a lot from Africa regarding this sector, specifically agriculture, because agriculture is one of the main contributors to GDP of the majority of the African countries, and this region we can learn from the African farmers or the companies, or even like the food tech companies or agri-tech companies, that they're very active in that. Shall we talk about opportunities, guys? You want to add anything regarding opportunities in this region? Abdurrahman, anything you want to add regarding opportunities? We can't hear you properly. Please talk louder. No, I said that we cannot hear you properly. You're on mute. Okay, now.
You have double all actually as so double in right now. So I think I don't have nothing to add.
Alright, all good. Anything else?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very interesting actually what you're saying. I'm starting to now think about some of the more contextual things that I could probably sort of so, one of the things that I've spent a lot of time thinking about myself is supply and demand, right? And just as a fundamental truth of how do you determine an opportunity where potential funding could catalyze the growth of something that can exacerbate the availability of new and innovative ways of doing things that are more efficient, that are better for the earth, and provide a more fair distribution of food, for example, right? Food security is the biggest problem that we're faced with as humankind. And I think one thing that happens, I mean, if you were to kind of take it out of the context of what we're talking about and take it to another context of, let's say, travel and tourism, for anyone who's lived here long enough, you'll know that when you leave Dubai and go and visit any other place, and no matter how lovely and charming it is, there's always going to be things about it that you will always say, Dubai does it better, right? And while that's great that we have access to such high quality of living, I think it also opens up this huge corridor of opportunity to help us think about how in this very high quality of living, we are exposed to the best of everything. But it's a very small community where we're experiencing all of these things. When you step outside a little bit to more rural and urban, very urban settings, you'll see the opportunity to take those technologies, take those ideas, have great potential, right? Recently I visited Zanzibar with my family. That's a very old place, and it has a very complex history with a lot of different cultures and nationalities that have spent time and lived there and done all kinds of things, good, bad, and what happened. But it's interesting to see how underdeveloped they are, considering how much dollar investment is coming in there for tourism. And I can't help but wonder what is stopping us from being able to take innovative ideas that can have very easily transportable applications in places where there's a higher demand for higher quality, no matter where we go, but doing it in a way that actually provides, let's say, a more cost-friendly approach. So for example, you were talking about soil testing. Now, soil testing is probably one of the most important things for understanding where drip irrigation technology can succeed in growing really good produce. Funny story, we grew banana and chili, which, banana requires an immense amount of water, and we grew this in soil that was basically sand, because it was really efficient, because the nutrients in the soil were extremely potent, and they were able to grow this kind of produce. So I think really sort of more an open-pointed question is, this can be a great place for R&D and for testing, but you have such great opportunities in markets in the nearby vicinity where a lot of potential dollars can go and diversify both economies of countries that are looking to create more import quality material, but also be able to export some of that ideation that can create more export capability in other markets. Pakistan, where I'm from, incidentally, we grow a lot of fresh produce and like rice and cotton. Ironically, we end up exporting most of it. We have to import from other countries the same material at lower cost because it's more profitable for us us to export it. And this, imbalance in trade is hilarious, but also quite frightening because of where it's leading us to. So I think there are a lot of ways for us to be able to look at, combining the two in a way that actually creates more opportunities for everybody.
Optimizing the proper supply chain between different regions or countries to preventing the waste management for agricultural products.
That and more integration between public and private partnerships that are not just dependent on the local economy, but partner economies like GCC coming together and sharing knowledge and wealth around how certain kinds of farming can be more efficient and beneficial, and making it cost effective by subsidizing it so that more private entities can adopt it, so that VCs can come in and invest in those as a participating entity in a collective vehicle, for example.
Great point. Yes, that's we need to just push for that. Both VCs, educating them, and also to the governments and the other private sectors. Justin, do you know what happened? I guess it is not live anymore. Will you check my laptop? Maybe Tara is something new. He's not there.
Maybe you understand what I said.
He has a very, very interesting company he's running. He's like it's like a social enterprise thing, but dealing with the waste management. So he has a demo after that. So it's interesting. Regarding the challenges, if you want to just talk about the challenges, any of you guys, if you want to just start with the challenges we see in MENA in general regarding these two sectors, and also particularly UAE. Any of you? Feel free.
Well, I believe the challenges we have are also the chances here. We just look into the, let's say, three dominant elements we see in the UAE. It's often the climate, it's rather warm outside, which is a global trend. So global warming is affecting also agricultural production in other countries. We do have a situation that we have more salt water than sweet water. So saltwater farming is one of the most exciting trends in agriculture, I would say. Plus we have, let's say, disconnection of or the deindustrialized form of farming we spoke about before. And I believe if we master any of these challenges, this is great technology and know-how to export. The majority of countries in this world are not industrialized like the US, Canada, or the European countries, but they are more reliant on small farms. The majority of countries has maybe issues with climate, if not yet, it's to come. And if you just look at China, for example, having roughly like 20% of the global population, but if I'm right with that, has about only 4% of farmable land in their perimeters. Saltwater farming, as an example, is a very, very interesting element also for these countries. So I think any of these challenges requires different technologies than we normally see in the VC decks of agriculture pitches, but will be beneficial for the majority of consumers out there on the long run. So I think this is really a huge opportunity for us to really deliver out of the scarcities we see in the UAE to the world.
Using UAE as a platform to just testing our ideas and moving out and exporting technology and innovation from this region. This is what exactly we can see, not only in this sector, in many other sectors regarding technology. Many people are coming here to test it because the market is small. At the same time, the appetite for investment is high in the technology, so they're testing and expanding from there. Zohair or Tyrus, do you want to add to that?
I think one of the most unique challenges I know, especially facing Africa, is you get that there are pockets of resistance, especially to automation of farming. And I'll give a very classic example. So there are these huge tracts of tea farms you have in the best growing areas of Kenya. So the companies that were running the farms decided to automate the tea plucking. So they put the automated tea pluckers and everything. And it caused massive riots and chaos because the workers themselves felt that they were being rendered unemployed. A automation, they're coming to take their jobs. So one of the most unique challenges I find, and especially with PCs, is that they ignore that very important aspect and component of cultural awareness. You know, the very nuanced, scenarios whereby you can't just pick and plug and expect that the technology will solve the problem that the robots are facing. So there needs to be a very good initiative to perform a very in-depth gap analysis, understand the cultural nuances across all regions, understand what technological impact will this have with the locals, and how do we get people to adopt it. You know, if at all we are going to have Agritech permeating and being very pervasive across these economies that are, first of all, they're very fertile. They're also very, they have very ready markets. They have great supply chains from the ports. They have good road networks and railway networks as well. So there needs to be a very good study that is commissioned to understand how do you break those cultural barriers to enable people to accept technology. So people do appreciate technology. It's not that they don't know about it. It's only that they need to be integrated with the innovation, and they need to be. It's probably an entire startup by itself, in my opinion, that just needs to be commissioned and just needs to go in there and figure out how do we get people to understand that this is actually coming to help the economy. It's also going to put money in their pockets, because at the end of the day, that's the baseline. That's what people really care about. So I think for me, that's one of the main areas I find as a challenge, but a very good opportunity as well.
Very important point, yes, I totally agree with you. So, where do you want to add regarding the challenges?
Again, very astute point about the ground reality of things. I really love talking about this sort of concept by an author, Almond Toffler, he's a British author, who wrote this book called Future Shock. And if anyone hasn't heard of it or read it, I highly recommend researching it, if nothing else. The idea of future shock suggests that the rate of change of technology is faster than human beings' ability to keep up with it. And I think it applies more and more as we're getting hyper-dependent on technological capability that allows our day-to-day to progress, right? I mean, most of us will probably wake up in the morning and look at our phone before we actually look at whether it's raining outside. And I think it really speaks to how in higher concentrations of where adoption is faster, these are very interesting challenges that I think even in my company or even through my own career, doing a lot of digital transformation, one thing that I've always kind of leaned on is the idea that transformation is 90% people and 10% technology. And if you get people to come across, then the rest of it is really just kind of a finishing touch. And I think the only way that really starts is when you meet people where they are, 70%, 80% of the way, and then gradually get them to come to you by demonstrating value and impact and possibilities. Forcing change can obviously leave a lot of people behind, but sometimes growth comes at any expense, and that can have its pros and cons. But I think in terms of a challenge, I would say that something that I deal with, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs across the region deal with, is there's a tremendous amount of capital that's sitting that, irrespective of what the world is experiencing right now in financial markets, over the last few years, since 2008, let's say, it's been kind of up and down. But there's a lot of money that needs to be deployed. And a lot of the people who are deciding where the money goes, whether they're LPs or GPs and funds, they're waiting for the right opportunities. Sometimes you'll get a ChatGPT moment where there'll be an anomaly and somebody will throw a bunch of money and make a lot of return. But these are few and far between when you think about it, right? Because the people who are really working hard at building things that create infrastructural changes from a farming level, from a communication level, where you're doing really foundational stuff, access to capital at a faster rate is really important. And this is something that I've spoken about a couple of times, where it's this idea that, for example, if a government was to allocate 0.1% of its total GDP towards a small no-fuss capital pool that basically gave access to people after a certain qualification, that allowed them to quickly go through ideation with good infrastructure, like an accelerator or an incubator that partnered with them to be able to. Now in Dubai, you see this. You have many programs, and now Saudi Arabia is investing very heavily, spend a lot of time there, seeing a lot of initiatives from the government. We've also been benefiting from ourselves, but these are two very large markets, and what happens to others is that it becomes very intimidating. So creating blueprints that are easily replicable and access to capital that's fast, that I think is a big challenge that still needs a lot of work outside of a place like Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Riyadh, where more populations, even in Cairo, can access these kinds of resources and be able to fail quickly and move up. You know, I mean, half the people in this room, if you've ever built a business, you're never going to get it right the first 20 times, but you keep at it. That's the point.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. You mean the VCs and the angels amount of investment in this sector is not that, not a lot, or microfinancing?
Yes, there I'm saying that decision making in deploying the capital is very slow. It's so slow that it almost defeats the purpose of the innovation if it doesn't get fueled quickly enough to be able to decide is this viable or not. Viability at different stages of an investment.
Due diligence, you mean?
Could be due diligence, could be the mechanism of follow-ups, I don't know. I mean,
I guess it's kind of the mentality, you see.
Getting to due diligence.
Kind of, yes. If you compare it like, the people here, which we are part of here as well, it's slower. Comparing, like, for example, maybe the US, you live there, you raise a business, it's just like that,
exactly.
right?
In the US, you get decisions right.
Even in Canada, we are way behind the US in decision making. So it's a cultural thing. Here, why? I moved personally here from Canada to Dubai because I noticed nothing gonna work from Canada. People, they need to see you, feeling your presence, meet with them. Building the trust, it takes time, right? Similar thing in Pakistan. I have a lot of Pakistani friends. I worked with the government of Pakistan as a consultant for 5 years back in Canada. It took 2 years for us from their consulate commercial section back in Vancouver to actually pushing the government in Pakistan that we have such an idea. 2 years, right? So it is a cultural thing. But I guess again, we've been pushing from the private sector, through the connection, relationship you're building it, right? Educate them, give them benefits at the end of the day for the whole country and the people, and how we can contribute to the GDP of every single country through our efforts. I guess they're going to change, making decisions faster, and implement it like the UAE government, right?
I mean, that and trust, I think, is often a very overlooked component. I mean, just because I have a lot of experience doing something doesn't mean I'm the best person for it. I could be the most passionate person. I mean, but there are a lot of factors that, really kind of come around trust. And I think when you create trust networks, those, I think this is one of the companies that's talking about here, works on blockchain, and that's an entirely trust-based infrastructure, right? Trust is a very important component, and I think that's a big driver of change in even, culture elements as well. Absolutely.
Anything else, guys, you want to add regarding the challenges we see in this region for these specific two sectors? So we talked about governmental policies, slow decision making by the investors and the VCs, automation, industrialization. Nicole was impacting, talking about that. What else, guys, you think? What other challenges? Maybe lack of innovation? Lack of innovation in these sectors?
Well, I would agree to the funding, specifically in this region, ironically, a challenge compared to the global market. If you look at the global market with Agritech, it's hiking the CAGR 20%, and we're here in the low digits in terms of funding and market share. So actually, the money which is spent here on Agritech is relatively little, which is, I believe, my personal opinion, not doing justice to the opportunities we have. And I believe it's a question like for the venture capitalists or other investors, what are we looking for? And agriculture, I mean, we have terms and periods of seed and harvest. There is a time frame there, which is kind of unusual for fast-paced venture capital businesses, whereas when we go to, let's say, e-commerce, we see much faster cycle of innovation. Because it's just like things in e-commerce, things do not need to grow, right? They're just there. And I believe the industry, and the venture capital industry specifically, is not really comfortable with the, let's say, the terms that the agricultural sector is offering. On the the one hand side. On the other hand side, food is produced, food is harvested from the fields, so there is a process in place which has been there maybe like, I don't know, 100, 200, maybe 1,000 years, who knows. So here's again then the farmer community which may ask, why should we change? Why should we go digital? Why should we deploy new technologies which are maybe simply not common for them? And the area where it works well, again, when we are back in Europe, then we are back in the US, where we have industrialized food production. And this is simply not here. So as we are not looking into industrialized food production in the Middle East at the moment, though we have the need to improve, Egypt is experiencing decreasing productions, though we have the guidance from the government to improve and to innovate. Saudi Arabia is starting programs to increase organic food production, so that's actually quite interesting. Still, there is a mismatch of, I think, the investees and the investors at the moment.
Very important, and I guess not only these two sectors we need to educate the VCs, but because it's something new in this region. Investing as a VC in the tech companies is something new we can see in this region. They created their funds, they're investing, they have a really good amount of money, but still they are not that, risk takers as a real VC or angel. This is the thing, because they have like a traditional banker, traditional background in like, as like a real estate investor or like, the gold, those things. So we need a little bit more time to educate the VCs and angel in this region. In this region, I can see this Turkey is not part of the MENA, but still, Turkey is doing good. Iran is doing really good in terms of, the food industrialization. Saudi somehow is doing good. Kuwait, traditionally, they're really good in the food and beverage industry. But the rest, we don't see that a lot. So we need to work on that. Probably with the proper education, outreaching to different communities, universities, and promoting these areas. Challenges, tires, we want to just talk about specifically regarding UAE, you can see, or even from cybersecurity, which is your background, you could add to that?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that I've seen happen recently is that technology is always, outpacing humanity, as you rightly put it. And I don't know if you've seen, there's a video that has been going around the internet where you have a drone that is harvesting strawberries. So ideally, that's where technology is heading. Now the question becomes, do we have enough regulation? Do we have enough insights into the existing frameworks that can protect automated agri-tech infrastructure? I know two countries that have actually come up with very specific frameworks to deal with this, and that's the UK. In 2022, the UK National Security Council released an advisory on how it is that farmers in large scale and automated areas need to consider the possibility of having the automated farms taken over by, say, ransomware or even hackers. And when you think about it, this is actually at a national security level, because food security affects everyone globally. So you can imagine a scenario where an automated fertilizer plant, is infiltrated and taken over by hackers, and they're able to give more than the required amount of fertilizer to a farm. You're basically just killing the population. Then number two, the entire supply chain as well. We saw a huge attack on the shipping line Maersk sometime in 2017, 2018. They're still reeling from the effects of it.
Right? Is that the shipping lines?
Yes, the logistics company. Yes.
Their system.
Yes, yeah. And that greatly affected their supply chain up to date, because there are systems that have never recovered from them. So what we need to ask ourselves then from a funding perspective is, do we need to also consider investing into startups that are looking into cybersecurity specifically for Agritech? In my opinion, yes we do. Because again, R&D, and especially in this particular market, the ECC region, is very well embraced. And this is, I think, one of the first regions globally to adopt technology, if I'm not wrong. And technology was very well here. So I feel that even from a VC perspective, funding perspective, we need to also look out for pockets of innovative startups that are looking at developing security solutions around existing agritech solutions. I know Israel has done a very good job at that, but now we also need to take it to the next level and see how else can we cascade some of the solutions that are coming from this market and the markets that are also developing in the agriculture space.
Very, very important. I wasn't aware about these attacks for the shipping lines. That is just disrupting the supply chain as well. I guess there are a lot of opportunities, especially for you, Zohair, that you have the enthusiasm for the Agritech Foodtech. Maybe a specific actually company for supply chain. I don't know, like a specific software SaaS basically, or just for the supply chain, or a lot of opportunity I see in terms of the finance. Fintech just for this specific sector, the microfinance. A lot of American companies are active in microfinance, like Kiva for Africa. They're doing really good, but I guess we need more of these companies, and specifically like a local one in, let's say, UAE, in Egypt, in Saudi, that providing the microfinance or like a trade finance, even like as a fintech company. But specifically for supply chain, is something for your next startup you can work on that?
No, I mean, supply chain is very interesting actually, because I think, when we looking at my own experience working across this sort of space, I think when you dissect the value chain into a few big chunks, the supply side, let's say the operational side, and then the demand side where consumption is happening. And now where we as a company, we focus purely on the operational side, where we open up to supply and demand through partnerships and integrations. We are working with, for example, a company out of Saudi Arabia called Nomu, which is a supply chain company. They're a merger between two B2C and B2B supply chain company for Horeca. One on B2B and one on B2C. And for them, trying to find better ways of adopting, creating technology that integrates into where the demand is for the raw material is a very important part. So as a company, we specialize in inventory optimization and helping the suppliers see better patterns of consumption so they can have a better reverse effect on the supply chain in terms of pulling into the markets, storing, the logistics, because there's a huge cost attached to all of this, warehousing, so on and so forth. But for me, I fundamentally don't want to get into the part of the value chain where there's a huge operation burden required. On the delivery side, with aggregation delivery, I think is one example of that, where unit economics is very different fundamentally. They've always been. You'll only see very few companies in the world like EMX70, which is also a delivery hero company, that is profitable is because they actually are a marketplace, but they give the fulfillment to the restaurants. Where on the supply side, owning the whole part of the value chain becomes very expensive and cost intensive. It's very similar to impact investing, where you'd see a large part of the investment will go towards the running of the operation, and very little actually ends up impacting and benefiting those who are intended to be impacted. I'm afraid of it, intimidated by it, but I understand it a great deal, and I think that's why I look at it that way. But I think there are a lot of ways. I think your point is right. You just need more providers to be able to connect into a larger ecosystem. And I don't know if Dubai is a great example, to be honest, because again, it's a little utopian, right? You go to Ras Al Khaimah or Al that might be a better example because it's a little bit more desperate. But then, looking at other places and other markets where you have more indigenous populations, I think that's really kind of where the centers of excellence need to be invested in. This is great for understanding what's the best case scenario, but real applications really depend on where people need it the most.
Yes, and also we need awareness and proper education that people, they know, for example, these programs are available, what they can do in that, how they can contribute. Specifically younger generation that they have a lot of ideas, but they don't know where to launch it, or taking advantage of the different governmental programs in the private sectors, like the incubators and accelerators. It's just a matter of just paying attention to these sectors. I believe, like Africa, that you guys doing it is fantastic, really good. A lot of good agritech and food tech startups we can see in Africa, and they're moving forward globally. We can see a lot of Nigerian, specifically, companies coming to Canada and Toronto through Techstars. Sunil, the director for the Techstars, bring a lot of the Nigerians, specifically Nigerian, because they're more active in this field. But we can see a lot of them. They are expanding to North America through Toronto, and they're doing fantastically good. and also the supply chain regarding